Okay, we are live today with our guest, Josephine Perulli. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
And yeah, hi, welcome from San Diego, the home of Tony Gwynn.
Right.
Yeah, I remember watching him when I was a kid. So we're discussing today a little article I shared from the Hard News Network. Those profanity-laced people. I love those guys, but it's concerning a certain reporter who shared some information with Politico and MSNBC claiming that basically the Bernie Sanders grassroots campaigns were infiltrated by Albanians, Macedonians, and Klingons or something. So, Joe, I know that we probably don't share a lot of common ground on politics, but please tell me where you came from as far as being a progressive, maybe being a Democrat, and how you came to support Senator Sanders.
Well, Joanne, my friend, and I were paying attention to Bernie Sanders when he initially confronted Alan Greenspan, let's say that. And there was a video circulating, and we were impressed with him. And once we heard that he was going to run for president, Joanne and I decided we were going to do everything we could on a grassroots level to help him. And my girlfriend, Crystal, at the time, she immediately started the San Diego for Bernie Sanders page, which is now San Diego Bernie-crats. We were doing a lot about handing out information about Bernie to as many people as we could at street fairs, at farmers markets, at all kinds of events. So we were on the ground and online doing things for Bernie.
I говоришь по-русски, что-то?
Excuse me?
That was just a test to see if you speak any Russian. So look,
no, absolutely not.
I happen to be a staunch Rand Paul supporter. I actually have a lot of friends.
He's a good guy too, actually.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are Ukrainian and Russian, who are hilarious, and I find it odd that Mr. The person we're going to be talking about today, he started claiming that there was all this infiltration of your campaign, but how long of a period were you active in the Sanders campaign? And you were active not just online. You said that in person you were going to events.
Yes. We were going to meetings, putting on barnstorms. We did a lot. And the very first time I met John Maddow was actually at a PDA meeting, because the Progressive Democrats of America were the ones that initially encouraged Bernie to run as president. So we went to that, and from there we started doing all kinds of events for Bernie on out in the world and online also. But that was the first time I met John Maddow. He was never officially with the Bernie Sanders campaign. He was also doing things. Occasionally he would appear at our events and help out. It was all volunteers doing it, and he occasionally made a presence. So I think the one things that he did actually organize were the viewing parties of the elections in a few states. He did that. He organized that.
And we're also going to be joined in a few minutes by Jim Boydston, who was also active on the campaign.
Yes, Jim was very active.
And what was going on with the election throughout the fall? I do remember that there was an issue with balloting and people who weren't registered. Were there a lot of people in San Diego that felt that their vote was not counted? I remember there was an issue with the convention as well in California. Did that become an issue as far as you knew?
Yeah, on the election day, our election is in June for the primaries, and I went to observe at a couple of precincts, and they were handing out provisional ballots like they were confetti. They were just giving them out like lollipops. And then we went to observe the processing of the ballots. And that's where we observed that they were whiting out Bernie Sanders' bubble on tens of thousands in one day. They were saying that these people were not properly registered for the party affiliation that they should be. And I said, well, are these people notified? And they're not notified. So you actually think your vote is counting, but it's not. So there were a lot of UCSD student ballots that were also provisional ballots that were not counted because they said that the address was incorrect. So, and of course, those people weren't notified as well. Yeah, and that was just in my, in San Diego. I heard that happened in many other precincts. And in fact, a friend of mine in Los Angeles, I was urging him to register as a Democrat if he was planning on voting for Bernie Sanders. He was an independent, and he said for me he would register as a Democrat, and he did. And I told him to hold on to the card in case there's any problems, because we heard other states were having problems. And sure enough, he went to vote. And they told him he wasn't registered as a Democrat. He went home, came back with a card that said he was registered as a Democrat, fought with them for 2 hours before they gave him an actual ballot and not a provisional ballot.
Yeah, and there is a lot of, and you know, I am for voter ID at the elections, but I think one thing that I know that you guys are against is the closed primaries, which I think I support. What most Bernie Sanders supporters have told me, that there should be more access for people who want to, you know, because I consider myself an independent. I don't necessarily think I'd want to vote Republican, and because, you know, God knows they're a poison party too. But
we have a duopoly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and later after we talk about the affair with you know, Ms. Maddow and MSNBC, we will talk a little about hopefully Mr. Boydston's project with the People's Party, which is an interesting concept. Getting into the topic at hand. So John Mattis, I went and did a little research, and I will find the website for him. And he apparently did a number of investigations in the 80s and 90s for, I think he was a freelance writer.
Yeah.
And he claims to have uncovered CIA cocaine violation or connections with the Iran-Contra scandal, which, you know, it happened when I was probably, I think I was like 3 years old when that happened, if that. He claimed to have found the lost Army commandos. What did you or anybody you know have deep conversations with him about his career? Because it seems since then.
Not at all. I didn't.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else did. I don't know if Joanne had any in-depth conversations with him. And now I even question the credibility of any of that, since he's lying about, you know, Russia infiltrating our pages.
We're going to welcome Jim Boydston to the studio. Jim, please say hi.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I see you've brought some visual aids.
That's what we had at our convention.
Yeah, I usually just use a messy bookshelf. That's enough to piss people off. In any case, yeah, I saw, actually, Joe, I think I saw on some page somewhere that you also had like a nice, I think it was like Weaker Together for the convention or something.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us make signs, so we had markers and we were able to correct all the signs that they were giving us.
Josephine was my inspiration in that regard. She made her Weaker Together sign, and that inspired me to make the Rig Together sign. My favorite.
You guys were both there?
Mention.
You guys were both in Philadelphia?
Yes, we were. We were delegates for Bernie.
So the whole the group of people that shoved that coffin over the fence was my favorite.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was awesome.
I was sitting with some rum watching it, and I was just like,
Some of us were hoping that symbolism was so prescient and that it would be what would happen to the Democratic side of the duopoly by the time we were done fighting the good fight.
Well, I mean, I think that basically a lot of the work you guys are still trying to do could help with that. I just hope that there's more attention given to it. So the topic again is John Mattis. Neither of you have met him in person. Is that correct?
We both met him in person. Yeah.
You did?
He used to show up and volunteer at some of the events that we organized, and as I said, he organized some of the viewing parties.
Okay, and
election viewing parties that were happening in each state.
But how vocal was he? Because I went and looked at his Twitter thread, and I saw virtually nothing pertinent to the Bernie Sanders campaign during the primary season.
He was not very active online. No, I don't remember seeing very many posts. Jim and I were always on Facebook, and I don't remember seeing any posts on Facebook by him. Very rarely would he comment or post anything, especially before the primary. Yeah.
With my reputation as a Facebook whore, I was making a lot of posts that were all about truth bombing and all about the fundamental issues that should be important to every American and human, for that matter.
Yep.
Well, I might be getting in trouble, but this is John Mattis's Facebook page. It's him saying,
"Yeah,
Russia duped Bernie fans via Facebook."
It is so insulting to Bernie Sanders supporters to think that that's what it would take to trick us into not voting for Hillary, as if all the real things that she had going on were not enough.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I know it's very strange because I have more friends who are Bernie Sanders supporters probably than I have friends who were Trump or Hillary supporters, bizarrely. And because, I've always been very pro free market, but, and I have a lot of liberal friends, but they've never struck me as people who are complete suckers. They've always struck me as just people who have, committed views to, especially on the healthcare issue.
I'd say that Bernie reached across party lines far more than Hillary ever could imagine she would. He reached out to libertarians and Republicans and many independents. And when he lost the primary, they weren't going to stick around and vote for her, and they were just going to go back to their original party and vote accordingly. Even though more people voted for Hillary than those who were planning on voting for Hillary when she ran against Obama ended up voting for Obama. She's still trying to blame Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein and whoever else under the sun. But now, of course, they're really pushing that Russia story because, it's a double whammy. You can excuse your loss and blame it on Russia, and we can go to war with Russia. So winning for them.
So about what he did in February, John Mattis, this is February 18th. He says, Bernie Sanders says his social media person warned Clinton about Russian efforts via Politicus USA. He says, I tried to warn everyone. He says that during the election, he tried to warn everybody about what was happening with the election. Can you guys, Jim, maybe can you take it from here? How did that come into play? Because, to me, it seems like I saw his post on your Facebook page, group. I saw his, his statements to Politico. I saw his statements to local San Diego media. But how did that happen in real time, or did it happen?
Well, what happened towards the end of the primary season is he started making these posts blaming Russia, which was, a lot of us knew was absolutely fake. And there was no commentary from him whatsoever about what the establishment was doing to rig the elections and to basically smack Bernie down. And that was something that absolutely got confirmed to those of us who were delegates at the convention. The convention was a sham. It was all Trump is the boogeyman and then a bunch of warmongers talking. And that was it. It was ridiculous, and to me that confirmed, some of the stuff that Josephine was just talking about. And John Mattis didn't acknowledge any of that. He was not a peacemonger. And he was not about establishment corruption at all. It was all Russiagate.
Yeah, and
I was pretty outraged when I saw that. Joanne was livid when she saw these posts that he was making about our pages being inundated with, you know, fake news stories from Russia. She was furious. We were all really outraged.
So a little context here, and I have Lennon McCarthy in the chat, who's one of my fellow trolls and followers. But we had, you know, we had a couple remarks about this before, and he was a Bernie Sanders supporter during the campaign, and he was saying, you know, there's no way that what John Mattis did here, which I'm about to talk about, would have been done by you know, a valid Bernie supporter. So
no. Let me tell you this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hold on a second. I'll get right back to you. But notice he says, oh man, he says that he notified Politicus USA. Politicus USA was one of those blogs that is basically a huge Hillary Clinton support blog run through the David Brock apparatus.
Absolutely.
In Politico, he says he contacted a different David Brock organization, 21st Century American Bridge. So, you know, how about, well, Joe, you said you wanted to say something, but could you address the possibility of a Bernie Sanders supporter contacting David Brock as well?
I honestly don't. I really question the authenticity right now of how much of a Bernie Sanders supporter he was, because since the election, he has been making the rounds to many Democratic clubs. We have maybe, I don't know, like 15 different Democratic clubs throughout San Diego, and he's been scheduling speaking meetings at these clubs to tell everybody how all the Bernie Sanders supporters were tricked by the inundation of fake news stories. And Jim, Joanne, and I, and Madge, another woman who is wonderful and is very active, we went to the Vista Democratic Club because we found out that he was going to be speaking there. And we wanted to go and explain to everybody that what he's saying is a lie. We're the admins. We're always on the pages. That what he's saying is untrue. Basically, we encountered a group of Vote Blue No Matter Who people that were telling us that we weren't invited and that we should leave. And then we tried to confront John in person that time, and he asked who we voted for because he voted for Hillary and he was proud of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Josephine. I don't think they told you that it's Democratic, but it didn't say Democratic for you. So you know, you have to read the fine print.
Another thing,
Jim, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Another thing about that confrontation, Joanne is an informational OCD nerd.
Oh my God. She is.
And we love her for that. She had a 1-inch binder that was half full of actual documentation that proved that all of this stuff that Mattis was alleging were lies, and nobody there would even take a look at it, let alone listen to what she had to say about it. And at one point, the people running that meeting had the management there turn up the music to stifle us.
Actually, John Mattis wanted to leave right after he spoke, and Madge was the one that stopped him at the door and said, "Come in here because we want to talk to you." And he was still, you know,
arm and pulled him over.
Yeah. So, you know, I did have a feeling when I saw him mention American Bridge 21st Century in that article that he could have been a mole in the Bernie campaign.
At this point.
Were there other individuals that you noticed in San Diego that could have been that type of fit that type of profile, or do you think for whatever reason that he was simply? I mean, it seems that I saw many people who claimed that Brock and his minions were infiltrating Bernie campaigns around the country, but
absolutely,
the question is how many.
There were people that I was suspicious of in our groups. There were many people that I already, as soon as I met them, got a feel that they were Vote Blue no matter who. They were not true progressives. John actually was one of the first ones, and Joanne had separate meetings with him, and she said, no, I think he's okay. And then, when this came out, boy, we were livid. We were duped by him. We weren't duped by any fake news stories. We were duped by him.
And a lot of us, you referred to his connections with David Brock organizations. There are a lot of us who are pretty confident that if we were able to research it, we would find that he's on David Brock's payroll as well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go through the article in hopefully chronological order, and we'll let the viewers see exactly how this unwrapped. So I believe the earliest instance so I'll have to skip ahead for a second and then go back. But there was in March, yes, here it is. March 21st, 2017. Let me see here.
I think he had one earlier than that.
Right, and there was another one in. Yeah, that was actually. I'm looking at Aletta Pierce's. Profile. Yeah, I mean, this is what I think you guys should be most angry about. They put your names on MSNBC in the context of a Russian spying story. Does that?
Right.
Has that caused any problems for you guys?
Not with me personally, but it's just infuriating, all of it. I mean, I remember when they showed the San Diego Bernie Kratz screenshot on Rachel Maddow with Jim's name. It was really outrageous. It was, yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah,
hold on, I'll present it to.
I gave up on the MSM a long time ago. So I didn't actually see that episode, and I hadn't been a fan of Rachel Maddow since she sold out.
Right. We were contacted.
And on March 21st, I got a call from Josephine. Jim, you're on TV. And then other people who'd known me in person for decades actually believed that I was probably an Albanian bot working for Trump and Putin.
Yes, and that's kind of where like he did try to put some posts up very early. I see there's this August 4th, 2016 tweet from Mr. Mattis, which I'll show on screen, where already in at that point he was trying to say that Jill Stein explains her plan to stop Trump by electing him president. So this is already in August. He's talking about the Green Party being virtually, in league to stop Hillary from getting elected or something. I don't know what the hell that means. Forget about the fact that she got chained to a pipeline or something. I remember that. But I mean, the whole thing was, but he did issue. There was a post where he said that Russia. Let me see here. He said that there were Albanian and Macedonian trolls that were trying to infiltrate the campaign. That was in September or October?
Right.
And the fact is that so I mean, let me hear from you guys. Did you see those users at all in your groups?
Well, I could say for our Facebook page, we screened, especially when I was the admin, but Joanne also, we screened every single person that came on there. And in fact, he said he was screening people and he was sorry he added them to the group. Lie. I mean, he wasn't an admin. He never was able to allow people to come into the group. Joanne and I were always monitoring who was coming in there. And, if after I left, if one snuck in, it's possible. I'm not going to deny that maybe there was one or two posts that came up on our page out of the hundreds of thousands of posts a day that were there. At the time, it was a very busy group page. But as soon as someone contacted an admin and said, this shouldn't be here, it was removed. We had more trouble with correct the record trolls. We had a couple of porn postings that we had to take down right away. I mean, we had more trouble with that than fake news stories. In fact, in one of the fake news stories, there was an article that NPR wrote, which I don't know if it's still up or not. It's funny how things disappear, but they had a story about fake news stories that were being generated in a suburb of Los Angeles. So I guess we should go to war with Los Angeles. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so publicly, I know that this is from NBC San Diego. It is from February. There was an article where he was mentioned in, well, I want to go in chronological order. So in 2017, I think it was from May 2017. I'm just looking through here. February. Well, hold on. Yeah, the Rachel Maddow piece in 2017, on March 21st, 2017, that was the very first public revelation of John Mattis to the media, and Maddow actually had his name splashed across the screen. I believe,
Yeah.
you know, not only is the Brock angle, I think, interesting, the other angle I feel is whether Mattis was trying to use this in order to get a gig with either Politico or one of the other publications that he ended up sharing the information with. Apparently, it hasn't worked because maybe they realized if they were to give him a larger platform, there would be a little more scrutiny, such as what we're doing right now. I mean, the three of us. Jim, go ahead. Your reaction?
His first publication of that fake news tsunami article was in the Huffington Post. And that
Wait, I think the first one was in Times of San Diego.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It was in the Times of San Diego, but as far as the national, you know,
Yeah.
it was the Huffington Post.
Right.
And there were all the quotes that Rachel Maddow put up on that episode were from that article.
Well, the Times of San Diego piece was in, yeah. Let me see. March 21st was on MSNBC. March 23rd of 2017, 24th was when Mattis published in Times of San Diego, which from what? Sorry,
that was a follow-up article.
Yeah.
The tsunami in the title, that was published prior to that.
So Times of San Diego, from what I understand, is kind of a metro paper in San Diego, which is a fair town with a beach and a zoo. And I have a friend who works there for defense contractor. But in any case, it's not the main paper of San Diego.
No.
That would be the Union Tribune, correct?
Yeah.
So why do you think that they have you contacted them at all and tried to find out why they published Mr. Mattis's account?
I think we contacted them to correct them on how he was never an admin, and we got no answer. The author of that article wrote a couple of pieces on the Bernie campaign, which the Union Tribune never wrote really, and it didn't cover much of Bernie's campaign. This guy, Ken Stone, I think is his name, he did come to, he came to the election of the delegates for Bernie. He wrote a story about Jim and I, because we both won as delegates. And he might have covered a few other things about Bernie Sanders.
And if I recall correctly, we were able to comment on those Times of San Diego stories.
Yeah,
and
we
if I
tried to.
recall correctly for myself, I actually did comment and try to correct the allegations, I will say.
So on behalf of our guests, I'd like to ask the viewers to please contact, respectfully, without any malice, Mr. Ken Stone at Ken Stone Media. That will be the first name to contact today, and ask him exactly, what's the deal? What's the deal with this nonsense? So moving on, we talked about Maddow and MSNBC. And this year, how about, tell me if there was anything between this sharing with Rachel Maddow and the Times of San Diego and February of this year, when there was this indictment of like 13 Russian dudes. I mean, was there anything between those two events that is of note?
I can't remember, because just when you're thinking finally this fake story is dying down, then there's another story that comes out talking about John Maddow and our pages being infiltrated with fake stories, and you're just screaming your head all over again because you're like, this is bullshit and it's not true. And so I can't remember if since the trolls, if anything else has come out.
Yeah, you would think he could get more credibility because he has like a photo that looks like it's from, you know, Law and Order or something. But
yeah, that sure does look legit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't seen any video clips of him, but I heard his audio clip, and it seems like, I mean, he presents himself very well, and that's why I think he was a good whatever the hell he was doing, infiltrator of your group, if that's what it was. You know, let's not cast aspersions without knowing the truth, but you know, we should hear from him.
I don't know what his motives are. All I know is what he's saying is not true.
So let's go to the Politico articles. Jim, do you have anything before we go to those? Or
yeah, please. One thing that I've alleged for a long time, and I've seen more proof of it in the last 2 years than I've ever seen in my life, is that one of the goals of the establishment and the duopoly is to keep us as Americans distracted and divided. And all of this Russiagate nonsense and all of this stuff about different ideologies, alleged conservatives and alleged liberals, is just nothing but stuff to keep us divided and not to unite us.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I think, you know, I actually had a tough discussion earlier this week concerning a different story that I'd like to share with you a different time, because I don't want to distract from the topic at hand. Who's a conservative? I was talking to her, and she said, well, there's no sense discussing anything with these liberals and progressives because they won't listen. I said, well, I do believe that with a lot of people, there's at least one issue that you can at least get through to them on, that you have a little bit of overlap with. You know, that's kind of that's my philosophy when interacting with a lot of people. So I think you know, that's kind of one of the reasons Sanders did attract a lot of supporters in the Midwest, where I'm from, and from you know, the Great Plains, not so much in the South. You know, that's kind of why I believed he wouldn't win. But yeah, the division that you're talking about has colored a lot of the discussion today. In fact, I was just watching you know, this friend of mine talk about it, and I do hope to kind of present, with the help of you guys, a little bit of an alternative. You know, people just discussing the truth as it happened, the truth as the people who lived it happened. So going into Politico, there's a reporter named Edward Isaac Dever, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who published 3 articles in the wake of the troll farm indictment in February, where you know, Counsel Mueller indicted 13 Russian trolls, and suddenly you had this slew of articles that were saying, it looks like Bernie's campaign was infiltrated by Russian trolls. And then so I'm just going to show the articles. Let me see your reaction to those. So look at the headline here. Josephine, Sanders silent on claim that Russians backed him in 2016. What's your, will you give it a reaction in lieu of Senator Sanders on that?
All I can do is shake my head on that. I mean, anything that we've done on the ground and online was strictly grassroots volunteer. And Bernie had no input on what we were doing, which street fairs we went to, any outreach that we did had nothing to do with Bernie's campaign. And any outreach that I did, and I was one of the main organizers, we went out just about every weekend. I did not come across any Russian people. Yeah,
or ones that at least identified as Russian, but
we barely came across anyone that had an accent other than an Hispanic accent because of our proximity to Mexico.
Yes, and that's not the allegation at hand. They're not talking about Mexican, you know, infiltration. Right. But then Bernie indeed did react. He issued a statement on Russian government interference in U.S. elections. And then apparently one of the people who was in his organization claimed that John Mattis informed NBC7 San Diego, which here's the report for that of it. Well, I think I already have that open, so let's not try to slow down my computer. Here we go. So he says he claimed he noticed Russian infiltration years ago, and in this video he kind of looks like the dude from Ghostbusters who comes into the DA's office and tries to get Bill Murray arrested. You know, not this guy, not her. Where is he? Oh, here we go. Yeah. They started a fire, or no, what was it? They caused an explosion. Yeah, that's what he looks like talking. And you know, unfortunately, I can't share audio on Google Hangouts. It just doesn't come through. So, you know, I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but that's basically how he looks. And you have this like crazed look in his eyes, like, oh yeah, I saw this whole thing coming all you know, from in the barrel. Now, then they go and you know, I can't emphasize this enough. I've never been a fan of Bernie Sanders, but he did put out a statement. There's no proof that his campaign itself was infiltrated, because the campaign was over by then. How could it have been infiltrated? It's the most ridiculous narrative that there is.
Here's more proof that Mattis was obviously lying about all of this stuff. Because if he had known this for so long, one would think that he would have brought it up with the local grassroots organizers.
He met with Joanne 2 weeks before all this stuff came publicly in the news. We had to find out through the news. He knew us. He has our emails, phone numbers. He could have contacted us and said, hey, I'm investigating this, blah, blah, blah. And we would go, oh, really? Wow, let me see what's going on over here. Nothing, because it's bullshit. It's not true.
So if anybody's out there, this is the second person to contact after Ken Stone or whatever his name was. His name is, so the second person is the main subject of this. His name is iGuyLaw, at iGuyLaw. Whoops, sorry, I'm featuring Jim's window. So contact him, ask him, you know, why didn't you ask any of the people, Joanne, what's her last name? Or does she not?
Yeah, she's on Facebook as Sharon Wyndham, and Crystal C is the other admin. I mean, how hard is it to find out who an admin of a group page is? It's easy. You just go to the page and you click on the members and see who the admins are. None of the admins were contacted about this, and we were the real admins, not him.
Yeah, he claimed repeatedly that he knew this as an admin. And the other real question to ask is, and you know, I run a couple Facebook groups, even though I'm considering deleting my Facebook, but
yeah,
you know,
understandable.
Like, it's not that hard to be an admin, and one of the key duties of an admin is booting people from the group. So the question is, did he why did he not just boot people from the group instead of making it an issue and going to you know, David Brock's organizations or you know, Politico's USA, which of all, I mean, he could have gone to, I don't know, the San Diego Union Tribune. He could have gone to NBC San Diego at the time. He could have gone to Sacramento Bee. He could have gone to, you know, he could have gone to RT.
Yeah.
He could have gone. By the way, I do like watching RT just because it's entertaining.
Great.
It's not bad, you know, and I don't agree with them politically. I just like watching it. You know, there's kind of, I mean, we're developing a pattern here where somebody basically created a story from, you know, discarded rags. And, you know, I'm trying to go through it because we do have time today. Hopefully you both can stay. I don't know what time do you have to leave, Jim? I know you said you're busy in the evenings.
I've got about a half an hour before I've got to do anything.
Okay. So the next Politico article, so the first one was on February 16th. The next Politico, so Bernie issued a statement on February 18th. And he claimed that one of his aides had issued, you know, had warned the FBI or the Hillary Clinton campaign and the, you know, security whoever they are, the Illuminati. He claimed, and actually Mattis would later come out and say, yeah, I notified somebody high ranking in the Obama National Security Administration, and nobody knows who that is. So this is the next headline, and I found it pretty funny because with Bernie Sanders, you just can't win. You can't win. Can't win, baby. Can't win. Bernie blames Hillary for allowing Russian interference. So that, I mean, I think he actually made a good point though, because where was it? A guy who was on my staff checked it out, and he went to the Clinton campaign and he said, you know what? I think these guys are Russians, Sanders said. And Weaver, who's Jeff Weaver, who's the head of Our Revolution, said Sanders had not verified the information in the article himself before stating it as fact, which I think Bernie should have probably done that. That's the only mistake I can see in this entire saga on his part.
Yeah.
The Sanders statement issued late Wednesday, attributed to an aide to Senator Sanders, added he was using the word campaign expansively to include not only the formal institutional campaign, but also the broader network of volunteers and supporters of Bernie 2016.
As I said, John Mattis was never officially in the Bernie Sanders campaign. He was a volunteer on a grassroots level, barely, but yeah.
Right, and I think I think Bernie, before he issued any statement, he should have probably figured out exactly what that meant. But the best reaction here was from Weaver said, two dudes sitting in a hole somewhere support Bernie Sanders. Tell me what they did to support Bernie Sanders, Weaver said. And then there was another person, her name is Ariana Miller or something, who said, they asked her, why is it that he didn't know what actually happened? He said, well, we were going off an NBC News report. Does that mean we have to independently verify what NBC News puts out? And, they didn't have a reaction to that. So Joan Walsh of The Nation, I'm sure you two are big fans now. She said on Wednesday of that week, she said, seriously, this could be the end of Sanders 2020. Someone who cares about him ought to tell him how badly he stepped in it today. So, I saw from this was the biggest, vulture pounce you could possibly. I mean, these people, they weren't trying to arrive at the truth about alleged Russian collusion in the campaign. They were trying to kind of skew it in order to blame somebody who is a convenient target, and Senator Sanders is one of those people. So this is before anybody has revealed publicly that it's John Mattis, who actually, no, I think Sanders eventually revealed that it was John Mattis, and San Diego's Channel 7 did too. And then finally, there was another article on February 24th by the same author, Edward Isaac Dovere, who appears to have been basically surgically implanted in Bernie's cranium the whole month of February. He says, Bernie Sanders promoted a false story on reporting Russian trolls. And then he goes and takes all this stuff from John Mattis. And here are the key phrases that I highlighted a couple days ago. He said he never talked to anyone on the Clinton campaign itself, though he believed that as if it's hard to reach them. I mean, there's phone banks across the state of California, right?
Right.
Though he believed that the researcher he spoke with at the pro-Clinton American Bridge PAC run by David Brock was tantamount to reaching the campaign. David Brock was all I knew of the campaign, Mattis. Isn't that an interesting statement? All I knew of the campaign. No one at American Bridge said, call up Hillary, call up John Podesta or anybody. If they weren't sharing it with Hillary, that is their responsibility. Mattis is adamant that anyone who claims that American Bridge was not tantamount to the Clinton campaign is being naive, though campaign finance laws prohibit interaction between entities such as those. Now, Jim or Joe, please answer in interacting with Joe, did he ever mention that he's an attorney with John?
Yeah, he did say he was an attorney.
And he also made claims whenever there was an event he would tell stories about how he was one of the chief investigators in Iran-Contra and how he was targeted and stalked by the CIA.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Kanye West. But yeah, exactly. I think the real issue here is he claims to be an attorney. He actually said it in the article. This is like an Al Gore statement. He said, where was that? It's a funny statement. He said he's like part-time investigative reporter, part-time attorney, and part-time activist. So that's like Al Gore's man bear pig in South Park. If you've, I don't know, do you guys watch South Park?
I haven't for a long time.
Sometimes.
You should hang with some nephews and nieces who watch South Park. It would probably be, but that's an episode about climate change. But in any case, I think some of my viewers will probably understand that.
If I may give a little more perspective on how convinced we are that John Maddow was a mole locally, along with everything that we've already discussed. When a lot of us saw the election fraud that was ongoing all over the country throughout the primary campaign, and the worst of it was here in California. And a lot of us, especially Josephine, they actually witnessed at polling stations this stuff going on.
We needed volunteers to come help observe the processing of ballots, and he was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, and do you know who Michael Vu is?
Do I, or does Joseph? I don't know.
You Ramon. He was in Ohio in 2004, and where the election fraud occurred then. And he was forced to resign there, and San Diego turned around and hired him as our registrar of voters.
Michael Vu.
We have video evidence of ROV workers whiting out votes for Bernie Sanders on ballots and throwing ballots away and all kinds of stuff.
The shredding. We had a shredder truck pull up. Remember that day?
He never commented on any of this.
Nowhere to be found.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be that it's possible that he deleted it, but I didn't see any evidence of that either.
No. Well, I mean, what happened in California, Jim said, was the worst, but I think it is merely because they never notified the voters. Everybody voted and thought their vote counted. And then it seemed like by the time we got to California, the rigging, let's say, that they were doing during the election, they got smart, because in Arizona, they changed the party registration. All those people that waited for hours and hours to vote found out that they were registered a different party and couldn't vote. In New York, they were removed from the polls, removed from the rolls entirely, entire blocks, entire apartment buildings. What did they finally come out and say? 150,000 people got dropped from the rolls. So people knew about that. But in California, it was like a placebo. You were given the provisional ballot so you can go vote. And then what happened to that vote, you never know. And we saw it. We saw them whiting out ballots.
And another more perspective on Maddow. And all the grassroots activism during the primary campaign, he never contributed penny to any effort. And there are
he didn't even donated money to Bernie's campaign. I went and checked the FTC. I think that's FTC. I forget what the governmental site is. FEC. I went and checked, and his name is not listed as a Bernie Sanders donor. Or if he did donate anything, it was extremely minimal. I don't even think it was. I don't know. But he did have a super PAC with another person, and I don't know how much they got. We had an event one time called Beers for Bernie, and they were trying to raise money to donate to Bernie through the PAC. But it definitely wasn't, let's just say they didn't donate the limit of 27,000 or 2,700. They did not, it was a small amount, whatever they donated.
Well, we do have John Mattis, I am searching right now. There is a John Mattis in California who donated in 2012 to Mitt Romney. Is Antioch in your area? Antioch, California?
Yeah, it's in California, but it's not near San Diego.
Okay.
The San Francisco Bay Area.
There's one to Mike DeWine. There's a lot of John Mattis. So sorry, I can't reveal all of these people because it would probably also be.
Right.
But there's one in Pennsylvania that donated to a lot of let me see here, super PACs or something. I don't think it's the same guy. There's one in New York who donated to the Bernie Sanders, okay, from the Bronx.
Yeah.
No, but it's not even John Mattis. It's a different name that starts with M-A-T. So it's not him. It's not him. So no, I don't have any record here, and I'm not going to show this on screen because
that's
you know,
fine.
even though it is public record. It is public record though, but
go to the website and look for themselves.
So yeah, I don't see any evidence of him donating to Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders didn't have a super PAC affiliated with him, to my knowledge, right?
No, there was a PAC that John Mattis was involved in. I think it's called Much Better Choices.
Oh well, let's look at
and that was money that was raised from people that were donating to that PAC, and that was going to Bernie. So.
Much Better Choices, it's called.
I think it's Much Better Choices.
Is it maybe Progressive Choices PAC, or that's the only one I get?
Well, the thing for me is that he put no resources behind what he alleged, and to me that matters when we're putting our support into a cause.
Is San Onofre anywhere near San Diego?
Yes.
Not too far.
Okay, so I have the site for Much Better Choices, and I think it's a little more locally focused.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So this is not intended as an advertisement for this organization, and we're not endorsing it. But it looks like this guy was involved a little more with, and it could be that he was involved in some other progressive causes. But from the looks of this. It's very baffling that this guy claims to have been involved in the campaign. Now in your interactions with him, does he mention exactly what was his motivation for supporting the senator or supporting progressive causes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Never heard him say why. I mean, but not everyone that was volunteering would say, I'm for Bernie for this reason. We just, liked many of the reasons of what he wanted to do. So we just took it, God, if you're nice enough to give your time to volunteer and do outreach, we were thrilled.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think there's kind of a danger in this age of Citizens United, which is I was hearing. Do you guys know who Styx Hexenhammer is, the YouTuber? I don't know if you guys watch him. So he's very popular nowadays on YouTube. And he said that Citizens United should be the priority for all people across the spectrum to overturn because it actually it's possible they facilitated this whole weird episode, and it could be that a super PAC has helped fuel the drive towards a global war. I
wouldn't be surprised.
And this guy, he's an attention seeker. There's a video that I shared from the article where he has this screenshot of him, pointing accusingly like that. Yeah. And that's basically him saying, well, yeah, the Russians did this to us. They basically made us into their their prison wench or something from the campaign. And I'll tell you the three things on the surface, and that was before I've made a few more. That was before I contacted YouTube. So the three reasons I thought that this was completely ridiculous was this. So number one, in September 2016, the Sanders campaign is long over, and the daily management of it has gone into total hibernation. What possible responsibility does Sanders have to monitor the campaign's Facebook pages for Russian interference. I mean, that's not Bernie's responsibility at all.
They didn't even do it during the campaign.
Right. I mean, there's tons of. I mean, there were also. I mean, that would be like blaming Hillary Clinton for monitoring what David Brock was doing. In a legal sense, there's actually no way that she could be blamed for it, even though we all know that there is some sort of nexus between them. Yeah. So that was reason one. That was reason one. The second reason was also consider the fact that Mattis' claims relate not to Sanders' official campaign. Well, I actually just said that, but to the social media arms, like the Facebook groups that are not even officially connected with it. Even given that some of the Macedonian or Albanian trolls became members of such groups, which I didn't see, by the way, from looking at the groups. Why would this have been the concern of either Sanders himself or his rep, Jeff Weaver? You know, I don't understand why that's so important. Do you know anybody from another campaign, from another Sanders group that knows of moles like this infiltrating their groups? I'm not talking about Mattis. I'm talking about like these Macedonians or Albanians.
No, I don't know of anyone. And so I do know other admins, and I haven't heard that they had any issues.
So like in other states beyond California, you know, let's say Pennsylvania
not that I've heard. No.
And you guys are in contact with some people from those states, perhaps?
Oh yes, we are. I mean, I got contacted by many people from other states, and especially when I became a Bernie delegate. So we were in contact definitely with other people in other states.
And they never mentioned this Oliver Mitov or any of the other Macedonian trolls or anything?
As I said, the only problem that I heard that other Facebook Bernie pages were having, the problem were with correct record trolls.
Right. So let me see here. The third issue, which I thought was the most important, was you guys are in San Diego, California, which is not exactly a swing area. And the Clinton campaign won California by a 61-31 margin. And let me show what the polls were saying. The polls were expecting that she would win California by, let me see here, 32 points. Or no, by 22 points, and she actually outperformed by 5 points. So why anybody would think? Yeah.
One thing you want to keep in mind as well is that margin was on June 7th. By July 8th, when the primary vote for California was quote unquote certified, that margin had dropped to about 6.5%, and that was including the fact that the Secretary of State, who campaigned for Hillary Clinton during the primary,
had a fundraiser. Alex Padilla. He had a fundraiser for Hillary.
He threw away 1 million votes in the state of California.
But this was, I'm talking about the general. So all the activity we're talking about was the general election.
Right.
So it was after the primary anyway. So his allegation is that it would influence people not to vote for Clinton in the general election. And I'll just show this again to clarify for the audience. Hillary Clinton was expected to win by 22% in California. She ended up winning by 28%. So by Mattis's allegations, the Russian trolling actually helped her overperform in California. I mean, what the hell is his case here? And has he?
I don't think he was directing it just to California. He was trying to say that people in Michigan and the other states that she lost, the states that she just completely ignored and didn't bother to go to. Yeah, those are the people that were stupid and got tricked into believing those fake news stories.
But he's only ever shown evidence of California. So
you have to do mental gymnastics with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing, just to keep in mind about election fraud on a national scale, there were at least tens of thousands of us who chose to go green after the primaries, and for nothing else but to give the Green Party 5%, so it would be they would be on the ballot in every state for the next election. And if you look at the numbers, Jill Stein got less than 0.5% or something like that.
Same as the last election.
No, we know that that was fraud.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So you're alleging that it's possible that, or I mean, you're sure, but let's say it's possible. You know, a consensus between the three of us that in the general election there was manipulation of ballots for third parties in California.
Absolutely, in California, and I'm sure all over the country. And I also allege that Donald Trump was the chosen establishment tool from the get-go.
You mean in order to get Hillary elected or in order to win?
No, that he was the one that the establishment wanted in the White House from the very beginning.
I could say though, the emails from Hillary said that they wanted to elevate Trump as the Pied Piper, and now she's crying. You know, now she's crying Russia when it was all her doing. He got I don't know how many billions of dollars in free advertising because he was on the news every night. And
there's also that evidence of Bill Clinton encouraging Donald Trump to run as a Republican.
Well, the narrative there goes like this. So far as I've read it, it's that the Democrats were consciously, you know, collaborating with the media in order to get a candidate that would be not credible to fight against Hillary, and that was Donald Trump. And they want somebody that she would blow out of the water, and they thought it would be him because they believed that the media could control him.
Let me tell you, if I can interrupt. I was out on the streets all the time. I was out on the streets doing outreach, and hardly ever someone would come up to me when I'm giving out information and say Hillary's going to win. The only people that were against Bernie were people that would come up to me and say Trump's going to win. Never anyone would say we're for Hillary. We hear people say Trump, Trump, Trump as they walk by, but never. I mean, we had banners, you know, we'd set up booths at events, and never we knew that it was going to either be Trump or Bernie, but never Hillary. We knew she was not going to win.
Right, and I think that, you know, if the Democrats, look, I think that there were certain factors that Bernie did strategically that helped him lose, aside from what you're talking about, such as his failure to campaign in the South. But we'll never know because the campaign itself was not clean, and there was a lot of manipulation.
I heard there was electronic tampering in Florida.
Yeah, and the fact is that there are a lot of, especially in the South, and especially, I mean, here in Ohio, we have the Democratic Party itself has fallen apart here, but the party such as it exists is virtually, it's an appendage of the Obama and Hillary election, machine. So, you know, we have a mayor here who's basically automatically elected all the time. We have Dennis Kucinich here, who I wouldn't vote for, but who seems like an interesting candidate. It looks like he's not going to get nominated. No. I want to move on. I hope, if anybody has more questions now, I know most of my audience is, shit posters like, who know me, but please enter some questions so that we're not watching you talk about the NCAA. About for Jim and Josephine. So, but moving on. In the meantime, Jim, you are working with that new organization called the People's Party. I don't know if you have enough time to maybe discuss that a bit.
I did do some volunteering with them, and I was asked to be a regional lead. And at one point, I was acting as a national delegate lead, and basically our goal, we were trying to draft Bernie to lead the party as a figurehead, not necessarily as a candidate, but with the popularity that he got on focusing on fundamental issues that are important to everybody. We felt that he would be able to help us with that. And so there was a petition drive initially to get at least 50,000 signatures to present to him and to basically have him eschew any dealings with the Democratic side of the duopoly and come work with the people. And he never responded to that. So we have moved beyond that, and we are basically in the process of building a party that will be nothing but for the people and by the people and composed of the people. No more corporate influence. It's going to be a slow process at this point, especially since the establishment is working so hard to take us down. So we're working on that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get across to the majority of the former Sanders delegates. A lot of them have done what we call dementored and gone back into the Democratic Party, feeling that they can reform the Democratic side of the duopoly from within. And there are those of us who learned that that was just not going to happen. And it was all confirmed at the convention, and that the best hope for the American people is to take down both sides of the duopoly from the outside.
Right. And are there other candidates at the local level that you guys have found that are willing to start running based on the People's Party's platform and you know, only through it? Or, I mean, you said it's going to be a slow process. So how far along are you? Do you have candidates? Do you have people who are actively campaigning for the People's Party?
Not currently.
Being that as it is, I mean, there's a current election right now in California. There's a Senate election. Jim, if you, I know you said you might have to leave, so I mean, let us know at any time. But there's an election for senator with Senator Feinstein running again, and for governor, I think you have Gavin Newsom. Are any of those candidates, you know, the leading candidates or some of their opponents, receptive to any of the changes that you're talking about?
I think there's a candidate running against Feinstein. I think that he was on the Jimmy Dore show, and right now I can't think of his name. If I saw it, I would remember, but right now I can't remember. But it's running. I think he's still running as a Democrat. He's challenging her.
Yeah, I'm gonna propose a different candidate.
He's a progressive. I can't think of his name right now.
I'd like to propose Tony Gwynn as that's the only person I know from San Diego. So you know, I think like you guys are kind of painting like a bleak picture of it now. So is there like, you know, a mood in the progressive community in San Diego and California at large that, you know, you might be the, you know, the common people are looking for somebody that will support a Sanders-like agenda, but it's not going to get passed because the leadership is never going to support it? Or do you think that there is going to be some sort of earthquake in the upcoming primaries there?
I am not that optimistic that that progressives will take over the Democratic Party. We do have a lot of people on the streets that are trying to get progressives elected. The progressive clubs in San Diego are doing their best, but I am not optimistic about a takeover of the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, even some people are talking about a blue wave, and I'm thinking it's hard to get excited about a blue wave when we're talking more corporate Democrats. I mean, Doug Jones, that was like supposed to be some major victory, and then he turned around and, you know, bowed to Wall Street. So when people talk about blue wave, I just ignore it because I'm thinking that they're corporate Democrats. They're not progressives.
You know, I think I have a similar sentiment when, you know, I have friends who are huge Trump fans. I mean, coincidentally, people who are immigrants here from, you know, usually from like Cuba or Russia. And, you know, and I actually did vote for Trump, confession, but they won't shut up about how you have to trust the system. I'm like, trust the system. He's not, I mean, the system includes people like Paul Ryan, who's retiring, thank God. and you know, there's people who ask me, aren't you going to go vote in the primaries? And to be honest with you, I look at these Republican candidates, and it's usually they pick from the same script. They talk about, I support the Second Amendment. I support, you know, repealing the Affordable Care Act, which I did a lot of material against. A lot of material. I've always been, that was kind of my focus issue during 2016, and they didn't do it. And you know, even though I'd rather vote for, you know, anybody who's running against a Democrat, you know, we have an upcoming election here for governor and for senator. And, you know, it's hard to be enthusiastic about either of these parties. So,
right.
They're
the same party almost, though. You know, their policies are very similar. On one hand, the Republicans are carrying a gun, and the Democrats are carrying a rainbow flag. I mean, there's not to be crude about it, but that's really the major differences. Their policies are the same. They're all pro-war. You know, they're pro-corporations.
Now, if you follow the money, you'll find that both sides of the duopoly are supporting the same corporate masters. And if you look at the numbers, speaking of following the money, you'll find that most of the welfare that we taxpayers support is corporate welfare.
Yep.
It's all about the oligarchy. And if we could take out the corruption, all of these other issues wouldn't be a problem anymore.
True.
Yeah, and I think that you know, getting back to those super PACs and you know, this whole saga, it's possible given the evidence here, and we'd like everybody to contact there and spread this video to the media figures that you think will listen to it. You know, I've talked about Tim Black, H.A. Goodman, Caitlin Johnstone. I know you guys read her.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting. You know, on the progressive side. But if you're a right winger too, you should, I mean, share it with whoever you can. And you know, if you guys were to be available for other people to talk to you, would you share your story with them as well?
Absolutely, I would. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, has anybody reached out to you about this whole saga at all? Anybody?
No, you're the first one. We tried to reach out to people and they ignored us.
I mean,
now as far as the corruption of the establishment is concerned, BC DeGraff has reached out to us on that.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Mostly about the convention.
Okay, so more about the convention than with the Mattis.
Yeah, no, saga. Not about Mattis.
Which for many of us, the convention was a prime example of how rigged the Democratic side of the duopoly is.
Jimmy Dore is somebody that both me and some of the other people, and you know, I don't like Jimmy Dore's politics, but I love his show.
Yeah, he speaks the truth, though.
What would you say to him if you could get on air? Because I would like to see you guys talk to him. I'd like to see you tell him, you know, hopefully that I found the story. But even if you don't mention me, do you think that you guys could find your way into the progressive media and basically blow the doors off of it? Because I would love to see Jimmy Dore just making fun of Rachel Maddow, as he already does all the time.
He does.
In reference to this story.
I would love to speak with Jimmy Dore about it. You know, that it comes to, we're preaching to our own people. You know, there's people that know the truth, and so we're just, you know, in our own group talking to each other at this point. You know, it would be great to actually get out to people who don't know about this.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
With what Josephine just said, one of the reasons we are spending a lot of time talking to each other now is because so many people have treated us nastily, and they're all sucked in by the establishment narrative.
They're all falling in line again.
Are you referring to local San Diego people, like activists, media? Is that who you're referring to in this instance?
Oh, I am. Yes, mostly anyone that we know online. You can tell.
Yeah, I feel that, you know, I remember watching the movie Spotlight with the Catholic priest scandal in Boston. And I remember there was a statement by the guy, you know, Stanley Tucci, who was playing Mitchell Garabedian, the attorney there, and he said it always takes an outsider to expose it, because he was an Armenian exposing corruption in the Catholic Church over there, the Irish community there. And, unfortunately, I think, I would have hoped somebody would have looked into this before me, who would be able to have a little more credibility with your side. But, believe me, I think, if you look into the history of, and I've seen, Jim has sent me photos of him with the campaign. Josephine, you've been active with the Bernie campaign. If you're out there and you're a progressive media figure, these people, they're witnesses to a huge fraud that was perpetrated against, average people, average voters, Facebook users, voters.
Absolutely. The one person that did cover this was Lauren Steiner. She did interview Alita Pierce about this, because Alita Pierce was an admin of many pages, and she was mentioned in one of those articles. And Alita Pierce came out and said how they didn't quote her accurately, how there was not an inundation of fake news stories. But Lauren Steiner did a really good interview with her. And that was about it. That's it. That's the only coverage about this John Mattis issue.
Well, concerning the Alita Pierce posting that was it was featured on the Maddow show, and it was, if you actually look at the date, and what was it, Bay Area for Bernie, the post itself was basically, it had nothing to do with Russia. It had to do with people who were I think trying to just scam people to donate money to them. It was a money scam. And it had nothing to do with Russians. So, I can't find the post at the moment, but it is on the Maddow clip. Let me see here. I'll find it. But go ahead.
They mentioned her in one of the articles, not on Maddow, but it was in one of the articles. They interviewed her, and then they omitted much of what she was saying.
Well, it was splashed on screen, though.
Right. So that too. Yeah.
It says and that's the maddening thing, that they used your profiles, and both of you. That's how I found you, by the way. Right. Thanks to Rachel Maddow. The Facebook page titled "Bernie Sanders President" is a bogus Facebook page. Now, I've contacted them; they haven't responded, and they listed a bunch of other pages there. But it had, first of all, it was from May 16th, 2016, which was months before the revelations by Mattis. He claims are revelations; they're really not revelations. And it has virtually nothing to do with Russia. Right. So look, I don't know if the. Yeah,
I went to that page. I went to that page when I heard about this, and to me, it seemed like it was more establishment trolls than anything else.
So you're saying like pro-Hillary people who came on to rag on the Bernie bros?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, on that Bernie Sanders is our president thing, that was totally just establishment, correct the record, whoever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I keep seeing, this is, and I didn't intend to necessarily focus on this, but this is what they send to me every day to my email, calling Twitter a cesspool of white male toxicity. And what do they say about Bernie fans? They say, the Bernie bro left and the Trump troll right during the 2016 election are a barrage of Woman-gate, POC-gate, and they're claiming basically that you guys are racist, homophobic, sexist. You're a sexist, Josephine. Did you know that? So
I didn't know. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah,
I was convinced I was a Bernie bro. And it's funny because most of the admins of the Bernie Sanders Facebook pages that I know, many of them are women. So we really were quite amused with their Bernie bro characteristic.
Yeah, and it's just, it's an insult to people's intelligence, because
it is very.
I actually, I wasn't always, a libertarian or a conservative. When I was of age to vote, I probably would have voted for Nader. And back then, they were blaming him for George Bush.
Right.
And I was like,
one of the interesting facts about that is nobody thinks about the 357,000 Democrats who voted for George W. Bush in Florida.
or the fact that you know, he also basically ran a campaign that was based on a lockbox idea that nobody could understand. Like it was, I mean, but whatever. I mean, we can't, like, I think grumbling over old elections is really the job of the mainstream media right now. So in closing, you know, I'm going to give you guys as much, you can make some closing statements. How about a look forward? What are you guys planning to do? And will you spread this message and bring other people involved in this to speak to me or other people about the Maddow saga?
Yes, I've contacted Joanne. She's busy right now. I'm not sure if she's going to, if she would be willing to interview, but I definitely will circulate this and get the word out and still try to spread the truth. That's all we do. We're hated for it, you know. They always kill the messenger when you try and bring the truth out, and they don't like to hear it.
Yeah, it's because we're all sexists. But yeah, so we're all bigoted. I mean, I'm a Iraqi Ukrainian Jew, and I'm also apparently, you know, I've been called like literally every name since the election, such as capo and Nazi and
Wow.
everything. So, you know, it's really, they don't talk about the Hillary people. They don't talk about really any of the policies that she would have implemented, you know, as far as,
No,
and, you know, I've been
no agenda. She was trying to rob Bernie's agenda. In fact, she was in New York when they passed the $15 minimum wage and trying to get credit for it. And she never, ever was even in favor of $15 an hour. She was like, maybe we could do 12.
Yeah, she also, I believe she was always against gay marriage.
Oh, yeah, I think the Pope was in favor of gay marriage before her.
And then there was the funny thing that I'm seeing now with a lot of these establishment Democrats is that they, for example, in New York State, they have people competing who are former Hillary supporters, by the way, Governor Cuomo and Cynthia Nixon, who both support Hillary Clinton. So now they're all hopping on this, we're going to legalize pot wagon. Yeah, that's, I mean, Jim, do you have any final statement you want to make before you leave? Or?
Well, you know, one thing that I did want to comment on was you talk about being a fan of free market. Well, for me, since my efforts for the last couple of years have seemed to have been so futile, right now my main goal is to move to New Zealand. And it's funny, my wife took me there in 2009. And for being one of those godless socialist countries, they are the most independently and entrepreneurially spirited people I've ever met. They'll do anything to make a legitimate buck.
Yeah. So, are you like actually like looking for like how, like where to live there? Is it like, are you making plans, or is it kind of is there like an obstacle to doing it, or?
Well, they have a lot of restrictions on their immigration program. Basically, to be there without paying your way in, you have to have a job there. You have to be contracted, hired by somebody there. And that's something that I'm working on myself, and my wife's going to start working on as well.
Well, I have one viewer in New Zealand. His name is Floyd in Pink. So if you are watching this, please try to hire Jim Boydston. I'll you know, if you want to send me your resume, I don't know. I don't know what, but yeah, that's an interesting comment there. I mean, I think New Zealand's also great for intellectual freedom. I mean, they're very against censorship, from what I've heard.
Yes, and one of the things that's significant about the country is that it is absolutely 100% geopolitically insignificant. They don't have oil resources.
Yeah, they have like sheep and timber or something, right?
Agriculture is their prime industry. Well, one of the jokes about New Zealand is there are 4 million people and 40 million sheep.
Yeah, that's a great ratio. So Josephine, how about you? Anything to add before we conclude?
No, we're just waiting to see what's going to happen in 2020. I kind of stepped back from being active for a while, other than sharing truth on Facebook. So it should be interesting to see what's going to happen in 2020.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to tell the viewers, if you're interested in helping get this story out and helping to expose Rachel Maddow, Politico's, Edward Isaac DeVere, NBC7 San Diego, The Times of San Diego, all of whom have basically ignored these people who have the firsthand story of John Mattis deception. I want you to contact your favorite media personality, share with them this video, share with them the article from the Hard News Network. Hard News Network, always the best in news analysis. You can find them on Facebook, or not on Facebook, on YouTube. So please share this article. It is in the description. Please share this YouTube stream, and tell them if they want to. If they don't want to hear from me, they can contact these two individuals as well, possibly. I mean, is that correct?
Right.
And hear it from them, because this was pretty much as fake as it gets. It's almost as fake as the moon landing. Just kidding. So have a great afternoon, and
nice talking with you.
Great.
Yes.
And I guess go Chargers. No, never mind. Don't go Chargers. I forgot. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.